Came
so
in hot.
Perfect.
Right. Okay. Yeah, we got the Lit Clinic podcast here. You got Dr. Benjamin Morrell, my good friend John Ross. Excited to share a good message today. We're talking military, we're talking lifestyle creation, doing hard things, and a little bit of ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. So I know that you have many accolades, John, and I dare not take a shot at them. So please fill me in on how great, you are.
The Reader's Digest version, 22 years worth of active duty military service. The first 6 years was conventional, rather. The last 16 then would have been on the special operations side. So in that time, I was an aircrew member. I ran the assessment and selection for the place, so I was literally the gatekeeper for it. And then eventually retired as a senior leader in the organization, kind of the last level, not the top rank that you can attain in the military as an enlisted member, but the second to the top. And I always felt like if I hit that absolute pinnacle, I'd be so separated from soldiers that I just wouldn't enjoy it. Right?
What's happening in the trenches? Yeah, you don't get to see that. That's the fun part.
You get detached from the reality of what your soldiers do. That's really the best way to phrase it, right? You don't know what they're doing day in and day out. And so if they come to you with a problem, you can't relate anymore. You've been detached for too long.
Right. That's part of what I think made me a good psychiatrist is I know what it feels like to be crazy. Like I can relate. Right. So you were like selecting people for service essentially?
Well, so for that particular organization, so I ran the assessment and selection. I didn't do the psych testing. I did administer the physical fitness testing and then the advanced training. So that would have been advanced hand-to-hand, advanced land nav, advanced weapons stuff, and advanced first responder stuff. And so throughout the duration of that, they're always being tested, right? And specifically tested on their ability to operate autonomously or operate with very little direction. We needed outside-the-box problem solvers, not folks that just blindly took orders.
What do they call that? Destabilized command or something?
Decentralized.
Yeah, not destabilized command. That'd be bad. Yeah. That'd be bad. Well, just creating leaders out of the people and allowing them to operate versus over confining them.
Exactly.
And getting them trapped. So
not stifling their mental process.
That's right. So I think the title of this one we said earlier is going to be the best underneath duress, right? The best in the face of high stress.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds like that's a lot what you're doing
here.
You're
a poet and didn't even know it. That's awesome.
Yeah, we're letting it go, man. Now, so what got you into the military? Like, so what was your motivation?
So I kind of always, growing up, I always felt like I had a higher calling, I guess would be the best way to word that. If we're approaching it from a spiritual perspective, I had more to contribute to the world than what I was capable of probably contributing where I was located at the time. I grew up in a super small town. There's not a lot of influence outside of there, but it does produce some phenomenal humans that come out of that. Something about that small town life that it builds different people than big city life, minus maybe your inner city people that actually have to struggle with difficulty, right? And so I started thinking, well, what do I want to do with my future? Got involved with the VOTEC doing aviation stuff. And I was like, okay, how can I couple that with also serving at a higher level? And so, I mean, the Army just screamed my name. It really was, I would say, divine intervention that a recruiter called me at a time that I was thinking about it. And so I did it. And I mean, I did it at a young enough age. I was 17. My mom had to sign a waiver even for me to take off and go to basic training.
Awesome. So, yeah. So when you found yourself amidst it, now, was there any difficulties that you faced, or did you just gel right into it all?
Well, I think everybody faces a little difficulty. I can remember specifically the first night I was there, the very first thought that ran through my head when I was alone and nobody was yelling at me anymore. And so I'm laying in my bunk and it's like 3 a.m. or something like that. And the very first thought that ran through my head was, what did I do?
You're right. There's no getting out of this.
I'm here. What did I do? Okay, well, I can continue with that mindset, or I can dive in.
Right. Commit. Yeah.
And if you commit and you dive in, you're going to have a way better experience.
Yeah, for sure. So like responsibility is the cure to young men. Right. And that's a big issue that we see in society is there's no responsibility. Right. They're not becoming fathers at an earlier age. They're not choosing career paths. They're kind of just sitting around smoking weed and playing video games, unfortunately. So that's a blessing is that you got into it so nonstop since age 17. So that's a good little joint there, I would say.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So now, did you ever find yourself at mental odds? This is one thing I was impressed about your story. Because you went through like the gambit of doing all this crazy stuff, and there was like no mental health issues from that.
None. And that's wild. So I've asked psychologists, I've asked counselors, I've asked so many different people, why do I not? And some of my friends that have the same or even lesser experiences absolutely do, and they can never answer that question. Or conversely, sometimes they'll ask me, and I'm like, aren't you the doctor? I mean, you tell me why I don't have it. I don't know. The only thing I could potentially contribute it to, it was my upbringing. So I grew up in a very stable household, and we did have responsibilities, and so we were constantly in positions where we had to perform, if you will, if we wanted to be successful. as a family unit. My mom worked a lot. My dad worked a lot. So, me and my brothers were alone quite a bit. And so I think all of that stuff combined with, again, that small town kind of mentality and the hunting and fishing. So blood and guts was not really something that was going to bother me. So I have no childhood trauma. And so I think that contributed greatly.
You had a very stable mind going into it, and Absolutely. A very pure mission and a clear understanding of what you were getting into.
Sure.
Yeah, and so that's going to be the big thing that keeps PTSD away. And I learned this in medical school, that if you have the proper training, you don't get the traumas. The problem is that we're not teaching people how to regulate their nervous systems or emotions or understanding going into it. So they're kind of, if anything, the opposite. They're set up for a trauma because they're already sensitive people. They don't know what they're getting into, and they don't know how to regulate themselves. So the seemingly very small thing can happen to them, and then they're just absolutely destroyed.
For sure.
Yeah, and I'll see this like time and time again in the people that I work with, where like you hear their story and they're like, I didn't get a PlayStation. And they're like, you know what I mean? Like something just tiny, or
sure.
Some people, like, they got, broke up with by their girlfriend, and that was more, difficult than absolutely anything. But Joe Rogan says that, the hardest thing that is the hardest thing that you know. But that being said, like, romantic issues are particularly painful.
They certainly have the capacity to
right. Sure. So that's like just making sure that the people are in good understanding, because if I could get my hands on a lot of these military cats before they go in, we could keep the PTSD from happening at all. For sure. And I felt that happen in my own life, because I had PTSD from my youth because I didn't know what I was doing. Like, how's a 5-year-old supposed to comprehend life? And I didn't have a stable nervous system at all. And then you're just seeing something horrific right in front of you, kind of blood and guts. And then also it's someone that you love. So like, bam, now I'm in this just like, you're a pulled back state where you're like, what the, F is going on here? And then something else bad happens to you, and now you're in a victim mindset, and you're already running, and then something bad happens again, and it compounds and compounds and compounds, and that happens to a lot of these cats in the military, it seems like. So blessed for you to have gotten through that, but nobody escapes the mental health issues, it seems, though. It's going to get you eventually.
Something is going to get you, right? And it may not be my experience with it, and my experience with developing soldiers is you don't ever know what it's going to be, right? And it could be something totally that to everybody else seems seemingly not very important on the grand scheme of things, but to that person, it's incredibly important, and that's what tips them.
Right. So Dr. Gabor Mate, he dropped the quote that trauma is not what happens to you, it's what happens inside of you. So something horrific could happen. But if you don't really pick that up, like say for you, what happened inside of you was like nothing, like, okay, yeah, I signed up for this, it's whatever. Yeah, sure. Now, to somebody else, what's happening inside of them is, oh my God, like, what just happened? I'm a terrible person, or war is wrong, or I'm a pawn of the oppressor, or whatever it may be. So they go down these spirals. So that's really the internal world is what's setting up our success. And the more that we can build that internal resilience, it doesn't really matter what happens to you on the outside. And that's been the story of my life. I'm going through more traumatic shit right now than I probably ever have, but I'm like, yeah, bring it on, dude. We have the tools to be able to navigate this and build it. And now I look at it very similar to the way that you would strength train, is you kind of push yourself to where you're afraid a little bit. And spiritually training, it's the same thing. Like, we're doing crazy stuff, like your whole philosophy of like doing hard shit. Is that the title of it? What's it called?
Is do hard shit. Yeah,
do hard shit. Right. Intentionally. Yeah. But that doesn't mean just physically, like spiritually, which is why I made that pitch that the next blizzard, we need to suit up and go.
Oh yeah, go hand out some blankets. That's a phenomenal idea.
Man, we'll mic up. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Go military ops. You know what I'm saying? Get the drone out and have it follow us around downtown. We throwing out some hot grilled cheese sandwiches, or some little soup MREs, because like, how do you be a homeless person in Oklahoma during the winter?
Right.
Whew. Yeah. Jesus. And then she was talking to me the other day, or my lovely wife, about like Skid Row. This guy would go and do podcasts with just regular, like random homeless people. And then you hear their stories, and he would pay them, obviously, and they would open up or whatever once you get talking to them a little bit. And these are human beings, dude. Mm-hmm. Straight up. We have a thing where we desensitize ourselves towards them, but usually it's some horrific thing, sexual abuse or physical abuse, like crazy when they're young, and just it destabilizes them so much that they can't even really function. So that really just opened my heart up for a lot of compassion towards them, and to not look at them like, they're just annoying or whatever, or like, get a job, you piece of shit. And that's just a terrible perspective to have, but that's what's kind of shoved to us, at least the narrative from the media and things. So any way that we can get out and help those people, because you definitely could probably save someone's life in that situation, I would think.
For sure.
Right. And then I think it would be just get a crew of guys, you know what I'm saying? Like that would just be really fun to me. There was a guy, whenever I was in residency, he would dress up like a superhero and he would go help the homeless at night. And he made it into the newspapers. And I was like, dude, that's badass. Yeah. I was like, it's the least that we could do. But just has that, go hard or do hard stuff mentality.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's an excellent segue into I get a lot of veterans who are out of the military, and it seemed like the military was their identity. It was what created their understanding, their order, their routines, their sense of purpose, sense of meaning. And then they get out of the military and there's none of that now.
Right.
And now they just completely fall off the map and go, unfortunately, just not very well. So I wanted to pitch, have you seen that happen to like people that you know? And what is different between those people and people like yourself who have recreated a new identity and a new process for life?
Yeah. I've definitely seen that even in my friend group, even in people that were assessed and selected for the particular organization I was in. They just can't reintegrate back into society. There's, I think, from our perspective, a distinct lack of accountability for most people, so they can get away with kind of half-ass stuff. And in the military, we just couldn't get away with that. And so we struggle with this concept that it's okay for them to half-ass and us still go whole-ass into everything that we do. But if you allow that to consume you, if you allow it to consume you that you need to change them or something, then I think that's when they start to slide off that cliff. But I think you're 100% accurate on that, because I did struggle with that for probably, I would say, 6 months to a year, maybe even longer than that, and I just don't recognize it with who am I and how do I fit back into this picture. And I am still contributing, but I think that happened before I got out of the military. So there comes a time as you're progressing through the rank when you become less and less and less tactical and more administrative. So you're less of a doer and more of an enabler. And both jobs are equally important, just one's less sexy than the other. And so some folks struggle with that. I'm doing the less sexy job now. I'm down here at the handle of the spear instead of up there at the pointy end taking the fight to the enemy, right? And so I had a very smart leader one time say, you can't judge your importance based on your proximity to the target. And it just really, really, really resonated. Now, at the time, I was up at the pointy end of the spear, so it didn't resonate at that point, but it really resonated whenever I became a senior leader and I just wasn't out there doing the mission anymore, right? I'm back watching the mission on Kill TV, if you will.
Right.
Just kind of watching what's happening. But knowing that if I wasn't back there doing that, if I wasn't making sure the backside stuff was happening, that it wasn't going to be successful. The mission wasn't going to be successful, right? If I could pull some of the workload off of the guys that are actually taking the fight to the enemy, then they can come home and they can focus on relax, reset, get their mind right, boom, let's jump back into it. I don't have to come home to a bunch of chaos. And so you kind of lose that structure when you come out. Nobody's really holding you accountable anymore. It's easy to slip into the slump of just flat laziness. You don't want to work out.
Yeah.
Once you stop working out, now you're not motivated. Now mentally you're starting to slow down, and then you just snowball. And if you don't catch that snowball, then you'll just spiral out of control.
Yeah, it's really...
I mean, to the point that some people eventually hit the suicide button.
Yeah, frequently. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I would say a lot of it, and when it comes to veterans, it's not just the presence of PTSD and trauma. That's certainly part of it, but it's also the lack of the community structure, the common goal, your fellow man, and you lose a lot of dopamine when you're moving towards this goal. Yeah. That's just gone. Right. So now there's this giant vacuum in your life. The same thing happens for your athletes who, they finish their college football career, and now it's like that. Well, I used to get this profound sense of connection and grit and desire, and that's just gone now. So it's both a two-sided approach that I think we really have to pay attention to be able to help that community, and then also is to teach them how to intrinsically do that. The problem is the military, which I love, is a lot of extrinsic. Like, hey, if you don't do it, like, there's consequences.
Sure.
Now, that to some capacity makes them dependent on that system. Mm. And I felt this even in residency, which is certainly not the military, but to me it's somewhat similar in structure of like you're working super hard, doing crazy stuff. Trauma's going down everywhere. It's team-based units, and there's a common goal here. So whenever I left that structure, I was like, oh, I'm going to have to kill it in the entrepreneur world. I can work 80 hours a week. I'm super organized. You know what I mean? And then when all that external stress and structure was taken off of me, then I'm left with just me and my own devices. And I was intrinsically incapable of doing that. And I felt terrible. Mm-hmm. My nervous system was dysregulated. I was lost. I was all over the place. And it was at that time I was like, oh, I have to like rebuild myself from what I want, not what the systems want. What do I actually want in my life? And then to start to create my lifestyle built around that, and then picking out somebody and attaching that same level of oomph to it. Of who can I help and how can I deliver this ASAP? And that was curative. And it took me probably like, man, 2 to 4 years. Mm-hmm. How long out of the military before you felt like you were back into a similar groove that you felt in the military?
I'd say it was about between 2 to 5, probably somewhere in that window. I can honestly say for at least the last 4 to 5, I've felt like I'm back to contributing, which I was contributing all along. I just wasn't picking up on that internally, that I was contributing all along. But yeah, it took about that long. Right? I mean, that's a huge separation. When you've lived your life out of a bag and you've been on a pager, and I mean, you're in constant contact and you're constantly emailing, calling, texting, there's all that stuff going on. And then when you back out of that, there's none of that going on. I mean, even so I went and watched one of my friend's retirement ceremonies about a year ago. Yeah, it would have been about a year ago. And he talked about that. So he left the special operations community. He went back out into the conventional side. And kind of just the way he phrased something to me just kind of made sense. He said, John, just come into the conventional side. This isn't even getting out of the military. I had to cut my speed in half and then slow down a little bit.
I felt that.
You know? Yeah. And I was like, whoa, man, holy cow. So when I left from the special operations community and jumped right back into the civilian arena, and that first job was at Cabela's, and I'm in there going 1,000 miles an hour, right? And everybody else is like, what are you doing, bro?
Yeah, what are you doing? Retail.
Yeah, you don't have to work that hard. You don't have to engage with everybody. You don't have to. I'm like, yeah, no, I do. That's just the way my brain works. I mean, to the point that I thought I have some doggone ADHD because my brain's just always firing and it's always figuring out what I need to be doing.
Yeah. Well, so your system is upregulated. So this dog has been trained for war. Okay, so it's ready all the time for such things. So now we take it out of that environment and you just drop it off into a home with kids and a wife. Mm-hmm. Like now it's waiting for those particular stimuli, which has been trained to look for and to seek out. And now those stimuli aren't there. So now anything that even approximates that particular old stimulus or pattern, we freaking, are going to go ham on and just freak out or treat it like it's the enemy. It's like, dude, that's your child. You know what I'm saying? They say not the time or the place. Sure. But that just goes to like we've hardwired and we've programmed the human machine for a particular way of life. So whenever we're trying to deprogram and then reprogram a new one, we have to start thinking, okay, I am looking at a multiple year process to be truly done, but really the first like 90 days to 120 days, we want to have that locked in. So for those military guys, when you get out, you need to have that understanding of how do I slowly turn off the war signals and turn or at least attach those to something new that's beneficial for your community and the people around you, and then facilitating neurogenesis, facilitating nervous system regulation as you are reprogramming that. And if we could do that, you're going to get way more results way faster, because now I get cats who are going through what I was going through, but I mapped out everything going through that process. So then I can rapidly implement it onto people. Mm-hmm. So instead of it taking 2-4 years, we can get it done in like 90 days, where they have a business built and they have this and their schedules are organized and they have a community built around them. So I just wish that there was a way that we could attach that to, like either military contracting or getting people coming out of the military, because there's just a huge void there and there's no resources for that other than typically VA care, which that's not going to say anything about. Yeah. But usually I don't hear good reporting, at least on the psychiatric side of things. It's never good. They walk out with a bag full of meds and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's unfortunate and true. And there's also what's the word I'm looking for? Like a stigma associated with seeking mental health help while you're in. I will say that was something I was big on as a leader, whether I felt like I needed to go talk to the psych or not. It was a free resource. And so when I was at my senior rank, I would walk through the work area and I'd be like, hey, I'll be back in about an hour. I'm going to go talk to the psych. So if you guys need me, I'll be back. in an hour because I was trying to reduce the stigma. And there were times I'd go sit and I'd talk to the psych about hunting and fishing for an hour. I mean, like, we're not even talking psych stuff. He was talking psych stuff, and I couldn't see it at the moment, but he was always working, right?
Right. That's a good psychiatrist.
And so I benefited greatly just from that, right? So no stigma associated with it. And also my soldiers benefited greatly from that because then they felt empowered to go and do that. And I can say that culturally, I don't think the military has done a good job of that. Now, I've been separated for 10 years. I can't say what's changed or what hasn't, but the transition program is not great. It's great at getting you initially out the door, integrated into a first job, but it's not great at long term. Who am I now? How am I changing? How am I becoming a better version of myself, for one? But two, how am I providing for my family, or how am I providing for myself if I don't have a family anymore because I messed that up while I was in there, right? I mean, any of those types of things, they don't do a good job with that. And I can think back to another senior leader saying something one time that resonates, and that was specific to the special operations community, but it's true for the military as a whole. And he would say, this regiment is your worst mistress. It's going to use you up, and it's going to trade you in for a younger model just like that. And it's not going to skip a beat. It's never going to miss you. And that's so devastating to hear when you feel like you're such an integral part of the system. But it was true. As soon as I did my change of responsibility, who's John? Who's John Ross?
Right.
Like, you're not even on the call roster. Nobody's checking on you. You're not on any of that stuff. And so you're correct. When you say that loss of identity, that is insanely huge. And if people don't have the right life coping skills, man, they're going to struggle with that for sure. And in fact, when suicide really started to get on the rise, that would have been 2009, 2011 is when they really started to identify it and then really start to talk to it. There was always this bullet that caught my eye when we would do the suicide awareness training. And it was, when they were talking about causes, it was a lack of life coping skills. That was the singular bullet that I always stuck with, because I can also remember chaplains and I can remember psychologists and stuff coming to me when I was running the assessment and selection. They're like, hey, what can we do in this 5 weeks to help these kids out? And I'm like, I don't know if there's anything we can, other than, be the best version of ourselves. I don't know if there's anything we can do in 5 weeks to replace a young lifetime of bad stuff, right? I don't think you can weed that out in 5 weeks. And also teach them the combat skills, right? You can't do both simultaneously.
Right. No, right. Yeah, that's certainly asking for a lot. And that's also part of the issues, that prioritizing the mental health on the front end would get you more results on the back end.
Oh, without a doubt.
But we don't see it. No. So every time I work with somebody, I'm like, hey, what is the greatest limitation for the rest of your life in terms of your functioning, how you feel, and what you deliver, and your relationships? It's your freaking brain and mental health. Yeah. There's literally no better investment than the thing that is generating reality, right? And is helping you. Like, if I'm 1% more efficient over the course of my life, do you know how much that is going to add up? Yeah. If I'm 1% more decisive, if I'm 1% more confident, if I'm 1% more effective, clear in my communication, that's just 1%. If you add in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, a lot of people, it's up to 75, 80, 90. They're that bad. And if you can fix that, you're creating a whole other person, right? Just literally, just like, it's like a miracle. I've seen people who, like, I had a kid the other day, same thing. He was, I'm talking trash, dude, across the board. And within probably it was 90 days or so, his mom just sent me, it's been 2 years since I had worked with him, but he's going special forces. Nice. Straight up. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. This kid was just chewing up the mom's money. He was in college, just, not doing anything, smoking weed and just being a sad boy. And now he's out there just absolutely crushing it. And it's like, dude, look at the course of, this is one person, right? That would have just been riding the system out for who knows decades, but is now going to be out there saving people's lives and helping the country and leading people. It's like, man, each and every one of those is infinitely valuable, like infinitely. So the best thing that we could possibly invest in is another person's soul, right? So I can commend you and appreciate you for leading the example on, going to say, hey, I'm going to see the psych, normalizing the process, not in I'm dying. It's just preventative measures.
Right.
And then also why so it's lit clinic psychiatry and performance coaching. So I call it that for a reason, because there's so many guys, especially people such as yourself, who they don't really want to go see a therapist or a psychiatrist, right? You walk in the room, it says live, laugh, love, and you're like, oh my God, what have I done? So I made my brand, it's harder. It's black and white, it's targets. It's hey, we're straight to the point, we're getting after it. This is not some soft, spongy thing. There is some of that going on too, of course, and you're loved and all that good stuff. But also, performance coaching means like, hey, if you don't want to call it therapy, you don't have to call it that, because we're aiming at the best of who you are and how we can perform better on the day to day, which is the same thing as therapy, to be honest. But therapy has that weird stigma and weird association around it, whereas performance coaching typically sounds cool. And I always pitch it to, especially the dudes, dude, no professional athlete ever made it there without having another pair of eyes on them to fill in the gaps and let them know whether they're succeeding and not. When it comes to the most important domain, which is your mental health and your brain health and how you're performing in that department, if there was ever a place to have that, it would be that. And for whatever reason, we're like, oh, no. It's like, that's just absolutely, it's just foolishness.
Right.
And even for my own self, like I battled it too. I was like, man. But also a lot of people don't want to be called out on their all their
they
inadequacies.
don't want to own it, yeah, for sure.
But when you're in the squat rack though, and you're humping your back, and hitting it with terrible form, you would like to have it because you're going to injure yourself, dog. Sure. Like we could prevent all these injuries. So certainly just not just, we think mental health and like, oh, this person's like incapable or unable to manage or handle it. So that's like where a real, like, certainly stigma around it. But think about it more in the realms of using it as a preventative strategy. So I will do that all the time regularly. And that's just it's like a massage. So that way I don't yank my Achilles.
Sure.
Right. I stretch to make sure I keep my body primed for all that stuff. And it's building that up before I even get to the war. Now I'm already in good space for it, versus I'm showing up and I'm already redlined, and now I'm going to do a shift as a cop, and here's some shit I got to deal with, and then I snap. In reality, if I'm always in the green, John Ross. I'm always in the green. Like people are like, oh my God, you always have such good energy. I'm like, yeah, it's my job. Because the one thing that you don't want to do is walk into a therapy session or a psychiatry session with somebody's demons, and you're an open vessel, and that shit crosses over into you, which I have felt that happen too. So you certainly want to be locked in that department. I'll just close out with, your brain never stops getting better at what it does. If I can always be more connected, if I could be more consistent, more effective, better at communication, and then of course financially, you're going to reap endless results from that, right? Why would you ever not want to invest in that? Why would you stop? It's just ludicrous. So I think if we can get to make it where it's more, I guess what I really want to get at is like, how do I make mental health cool?
Sure. I think something that folks miss with mental health is not the individual aspect of it, because sometimes I think that's a hard pill, especially for men to swallow. Like, no one has to take care of me. I don't have to worry about me. But if you can view it from a different perspective, how much does you improving your mental health improve the mental health of the people around you, or of the community, or of the greater?
Your wife would appreciate it.
You know,
children would appreciate it.
So that's huge. And so I think if they could view it from that perspective, the people that maybe they have low self-esteem or whatever it is that's preventing them from asking for help, if they could view it from that perspective, well, if I help me, then I am actually helping everyone around me. Man, maybe they would latch on to that a little bit stronger and be more willing to do it.
I agree. I can agree with you. I think the other thing with the stigma is like the doctors and therapists in general, there's a weakness focus where you go in there and you're a strong-bodied, able-minded man, and now you're going to walk out with a diagnosis of something is wrong with you. Yeah. I do not do that to people. I said, you're a king, you're a warrior, you're a prophet, you're the best to ever do it. And if you want to live up to that title, we need to address some of the bullshit that's holding you back. Mm-hmm. If you want to go pro, then we need to fix your footwork, bro. It's just not going to happen if we do not address these issues. And people respond to that so much better. And you can just feel that, oh, I'm being psychoanalyzed, and oh my God, they're going to diagnose me and put me on some weird shit. It's like, no, dude, I'm not going to do any of that. We're trying to, who are you at your best? I always, with my people, I want to hear that first. What are your freaking goals, right? I want to hear the best of you, because that makes me want to be a part of this relationship of therapy and psychiatry that I fall in love with, and coaching. Is once I hear what this person's vision in their dream is, I am inspired, John. Mm-hmm. I am compelled to help get them there. Now, if you come in here and all you bring is a bunch of, bag of bones of pathetic misery, and like, oh, I'm a terrible this, I'm a terrible that. I was like, dude, that's, that is not something that I want to jump on board with. But they're so used to doing that from their other practitioners, they want to list off all the bad shit that's ever happened to them. I'm like, whoa, we're not doing that right now, pal. I want to hear the best of you, because that also inspires them. Because like, if the negativity was gone and we fixed all of the symptoms, what's left, right? What is there now? And most people are like, well, I don't know. I just want the anxiety to be gone. Well, there's your problem. There's nothing to work towards.
Yeah.
If the trauma wasn't here, what would you be doing? And they can't answer that question, John. And that's how you know they're in a bad spot.
Sure.
Because mental health is not just the absence of mental health issues. It's also the production, the pursuit, and the presence of positivity, of growth, of presence. So people are over fixated on, I just want to be out of pain. I just want to be out of pain. But they forget that we're moving towards something. And also with life, you can never there's always going to be your ticky-tacky pains, man. The best athletes, like you're training through injuries, man. Like you're always living with a little bit of back pain. Yeah. So just like if you're getting positive reward, and the reason I like this approach is, for myself personally, when I saw it, like, okay, I have legitimate PTSD, right? And I've made this, if anything, worse over the past 20 years that I've had it. And if I look at the history of what happens with this, it's going to take me probably 5-10 to get out of this completely. So I'm going to be in a little bit of pain until then. So what I discovered was, okay, there are people who are in profound levels of pain, but they also have profound levels of purpose that justifies it at the same time. So then they still love life, even though shit hurts, John. It's still worth living, baby. Mm-hmm. We're getting jacked up, but we're getting some wins here. You know what I'm saying? I'm in the pocket. I'm taking a couple shots, but I'm getting mine. So at the beginnings of the mental health journeys, we got to get some freaking wins for the people. And if you're going to go talk to somebody whose only conversation they want to have is, how bad are you? What's the terrible stuff? And it's like, it's all defense and no offense. We got to score the football, John. Mm-hmm. All right. So I said, there's my spiel, dude.
That's okay. That was good.
Yeah, we're in there. Now, I know, so we want to talk about, certainly psychedelics is a big thing right now for the veterans. Have you heard of any of your buddies using that for PTSD?
So I've heard a couple of different things. I couldn't name them. I don't know what they're called. I've had a few friends go to Mexico and try some stuff that they have had some phenomenal results.
Ibogaine.
That's it right there. More than one friend has talked to me about that and said I should try that. But I don't know, maybe in the future. I have tried psilocybin, and I didn't have the same effects I had with the ketamine. The ketamine was just completely mind opening. Gave me access to parts of my brain I didn't even know I had access to. I can write poetry now. I couldn't write poetry before.
Hey,
you know what I'm saying?
John
it was little
creator.
stuff like that it was such an awesome experience. And my thing was more, I would say, acute than a big issue. It was more of a finite issue, and it snapped me out of that so fast. So that was, for me, it was really, really awesome. So to answer your question more directly, yes, absolutely. I've heard of people trying different things. I believe the VA now is even toying with psilocybin.
Yeah,
and they're using
got
that.
A big
but for whatever reason,
too.
they're staying kind of resistant to the ketamine side of things, and I don't know why.
Interesting.
Having tried both, I don't know why they would.
Right. Well, so in general, ketamine is a big part of my clinic for the same reason. Is it seems to be a lot softer, and when done in the right environment, it has a lot to do with that too.
Sure.
If you take mushrooms and you just go whatever down the rabbit hole and freak yourself out more, that's actually not therapeutic.
Sure.
Which is unfortunately what a lot of people do. Like, oh, these mushrooms are going to help me. I'm like, no. The experience that the mushrooms can help you create is what's the actual cure. And if you don't have that profound realization and see your life in a different way and try to feel some gratitude for life and I can fix through this or whatever it is, then you don't get the antidepressant effects, right? So that's a big issue is that people just, getting it from their buddies and doing it without someone there to guide them.
Sure.
Got to have a guide. So for ketamine, like you had a guide, right? So someone was able to set that up for you and
for sure.
put you and plug you into I think we did a lot of breath work. Breath work was a big thing, gratitude, and visualization processes and moving through some of these difficult concepts that you were experiencing.
For sure. And your approach was less constant influence. It was more, hey, John, here's some bumpers to keep you on track, right?
Right.
Which is kind of how you handled it, which was awesome. And the music worked exceptionally well for some reason for keeping me focused as well. But just, I remember on that first one, I remember, this will be funny to you. You had recommended that I take a higher dose, and I was like, no, that stuff works really good. Everything works really good on me. Let me just take this low dose. And I had taken that, and you're talking to me, and I'm like 10 minutes into swishing it back and forth, and I'm like, I have messed up, and I did not take a big enough dose. And I just melted into the couch at that point. And I was like, oh, wow, well, okay. But I did take too low of a dose, right? And so it took me longer to get from A to B than it should have had I simply listened to my doctor.
You like that? Well, I can appreciate. Well, so this is one of the things that happens with people is you don't know what you're getting into. All you hear is these weird stories on the internet. So, what did you think about psychedelics beforehand versus what did you think about it after, especially pertaining to ketamine?
Sure. I was never judgmental. I've never been judgmental of really anything in my life. So if folks tell me that something helps them, then I'm open-minded to it. So before that, I had tried all kinds of talk therapy. I had tried all kinds of stuff. And it just, I don't know, I guess I'm very target-focused or goal-focused. And so I didn't feel like I was progressing fast enough towards that. I'm very much here's a problem. I'm going to attack that head on, and we're going to work through that. And we're not going to spend the rest of our lives dwelling on that. We're going to get from A to B as fast as we could possibly get it, as efficiently as we could possibly get it. And so a very good friend of both of ours recommended the ketamine. She recommended you specifically. And so I was like, okay, well, if she's recommending it, well, then that's what I want to do. And you may or may not remember when I came in here the first time, you're like, do you want to try a different approach first? And I'm like, no, I want to jump. No, why would I do that?
Straight to it.
Let's go straight to it. Let's just get right to it. And so now having experienced it, I can sit and talk with other folks that have either done ketamine or they've done psilocybin the correct way. And we just communicate on a different level. And folks that haven't tried it, they can't really comprehend why we're thinking the way we are or why we're acting the way we are, and I don't mean acting in a bad way. It felt like it elevates you to a higher level of consciousness if you do it correctly. If you don't do it correctly, it does not. But if you do it correctly, it really feels like it elevates you to a higher level of consciousness.
No, for sure. The intentional and appropriate use. So set and setting is, I don't just do it just to do it. There's an intention of, how do we create the best John Ross? How do we move through? Because I show up in the same way. Like I'm militaristic in my approach. Because the same way that you showed up is exactly how I like to do it, which is why I love working with you. It's like, okay, we have the set thing. Okay, well, let's get after it.
Yeah.
And most people are not used to that when it comes to a mental health practitioner. Like, oh, this will be a 10, 20-year process where I have to meet you weekly. I'm like, no, let's freaking go in here. If we knock it out and with the right intentionality and the right belief, with the good targets, and then we have the proven practices that work, like ketamine for the immediate remission of depression and anxiety and getting people out of those thought loops. Because you came in and you were certainly going through a lot of those.
Yeah, I was in a cookie jar.
So what was it like beforehand and then afterwards?
So it was physically, I can say that and I think you even described it at one point, I felt physically lighter. Like I felt like I let go of some stuff that I was carrying that I just didn't need to carry. And then I also felt like I got access to some stuff I didn't know I needed access to that had just been kind of tucked away. And, I didn't ever think about it. And then it slowly but surely started to trickle back out. But just the clarity of mind, I guess, would be the best way to describe it. Or almost like a defragging of a computer. Like my brain was working so efficiently coming out the backside of that. And it was so much more focused where it needed to be as opposed to dwelling. I had gotten caught up in the rumination cycle. Right, I stopped. All of that just flat out stopped. I forgave the person that I came in here specifically to deal around. I mean, all of that stuff just kind of, it shifted. Like my whole perspective on it shifted in a very positive way.
Excellent. Right. And then, so one of the reasons I prefer this is that, so we're enhancing neurogenesis. So we're creating new neurons, right? So we're softening up these pathways so we can go a different route. Because when you get stuck in that rut, dude, because we got to be very careful, okay? Because, and I said this to you at the beginning, I said, John Ross has infinite power to do destruction, okay? Your brilliant mind and work ethic and speed of thought, if that goes down a rumination cycle, it's not going to take very long for that to end up in a very, very dark place, right? So you have a very sharp sword, which is good. But if you don't know how to wield that thing, or you get caught going the wrong way, you're going to slice your own arm off or somebody else. So that's why, ketamine is like the immediate, like, okay, let's stop this now, and then get back on the path. And like, so we're always doing that in a very like soul-centered way on what's beneficial for people. Mm-hmm. We're not just getting stoned and doing that. Like there's, obviously want to get rid of any stigma in that department.
For sure.
Yeah. And so what you described where you were like, okay, just clarity of thought. That's exactly it. So for these people, there's too many tabs open on the computer, So now the computer's running all slow and clunky and just not functioning the way that you could. And it's like, where do I even focus? There's so much going on. You can't work like that. You can't live like that. And most of people are walking around like that. Way too many tabs open. Even if you look at their phones, 800 unanswered emails, messages, 3 other chats that haven't been gone through, messages. And it's like, dude, that's just, to even look at that's overwhelming. Where do you begin? So with these episodes of just being able to surrender and let go of everything, you can think about it like pushing the reset button or the power button on a computer, but the power button on your consciousness where it goes down to its simplest levels. So it closes all the tabs. And then when it comes back online, only what's most relevant and important is going to present itself, which is generally your big picture things in life, which is, we're heading towards progress, right? Where growth is the goal here. This little ticky-tacky stuff way over here the devil is distractions, because it distracts you from the main point, right? The big picture of life, we're getting caught up in these little loopholes. So you can just sort of like, oh, that is stupid. I can't even believe I got caught down that. But sometimes you need a different perspective in order to get there. And human beings have been doing this, whether it's, sauna or fasting and prayer and meditation and going out into the wilderness for 3-4 days at a time or whatever. Like, we've been doing this, and we pretty much always use medicines to some capacity. So it's only the modern era that seems to be really afraid of using these things when, all your tribal cultures have certainly been on top of it.
Yeah, for quite some time.
Right. So I think we did, was it 3 rounds?
Two.
We were 2 and done, man. That's nice.
Yeah, it was nice. I will tell you something that helped me, and I definitely want to give them a shout out, is completely unintentionally and completely out of, or maybe again, divine intervention, a guide, if you will, on the other side, the civilian side, or my life outside of here side, right? I met somebody that was on a very spiritual path as well, and recognized the way they described it was, oh, you're also awake.
Yeah.
And then, but they were looking at me and they're like, you're awake in your infancy. I'm years into being awake. You're awake in your infancy. And so they were able to walk me through the process. And so that may have accelerated my process, which is probably why it only took 2 sessions, right? Because that person had been helping me between my sessions to figure out my thoughts, if you will. Like, they were completely instrumental in understanding the visions that I was having while I was using the ketamine.
Perfect. Yeah, I said usually when we start this path, the things that you need will present themselves around you.
That certainly did in that instance. That's for sure.
You'll see it whenever you're kind of in that awakened state. Your vision is more open. And so if somebody is caught within their mind, then their vision field shrinks, right? And they're in their mind, and you're losing opportunities that you would otherwise engage in your reality. Like, say, for the opportunity for you to talk to that person. If you're in this ruminative cycle way over here in the corner, you miss that chance to engage. Mm-hmm. So you're missing a lot of life. So if we can just push that briefly, because I will never present ketamine as the final solution to all your problems. Ketamine's not God. It will not save you like that. It is a beneficial tool, but the rest of the stuff that we're doing, which is building the life and getting around the right people, like relationships, is going to blow past that every day of the week. So one of certainly the things I see online is like, oh, Ibogaine's going to save you. Ayahuasca's going to save you. The mushrooms are going to save you. No. It can be a tool to help us, but we have to do the other stuff in conjunction. And so I will touch on this is the cognitive performance side of things. So like mental health, people always are thinking mood. Like, there's a mood component to mental health when there absolutely is. Oh, I'm depressed means you're sad or whatever. Sure. But part of the symptoms of depression are also that your brain is inflamed. So your cognition is not where it's supposed to be. Your attention span is not where it's supposed to be. It's more toxified because you're not sleeping as well as you're supposed to be. So you're more distractible. So it's also your long-term earning potential is hitting the gutter, right? So like, certainly one thing I saw for you is that your online presence took off. Your business seemed to be doing a lot better. I saw confidently talking on. So can you talk about that on some of the other things that shifted?
Yeah. So I completely unintentionally started on this do hard shit campaign, right? And that popped into my head one day while I was out doing a ruck. I was actually training up for the Grand Canyon hike, and this just do hard shit thing popped in there. And because I recognized that in doing hard shit, I was present. And any other time I was off wherever the shit. I was off in my thought process. But doing hard shit, it made me focus. And anytime I'm focused, I'm insanely productive on whatever that is. So I threw that out there at some point. I think I did 2 or 3 videos. And then people started latching on. And now people will send me videos of them doing hard. They'll be like, hey, John, I'm out here doing the hard shit. Thanks for the inspiration, brother. You know what I mean?
I'm going to tag you tomorrow.
And so that ends up multiplying that, right? That feeling exponentially. And so you're like, oh, I got to go do more hard shit because I'm influencing other people. So much like what I mentioned earlier, if you can focus on just what it does for you, you miss out on what it does for everyone else around you. So if you don't do it for yourself, man, do it for the people around you. Right? They don't want to lose you either. And if you can influence other people in a positive way, which has become my goal in life, how many people can I make smile in a day? That's beautiful. And I engage with so many people. Just about everybody I walk past, I'm trying to talk to, right? But it kind of set me down that path of the do hard shit thing. And now it's just stuck. And so
yeah, do it. Yeah. So putting the smile on people's face in like really hard times.
For sure.
So that's how we create warriors who, whenever stressful things or destructive things happen to them, they won't get the trauma. You actually welcome it. Like, oh, bless it.
It's a challenge.
Yeah, right. It's a blessing. So I think it's in Matthew that we celebrate difficult things. What a beautiful opportunity to build our endurance, right? And like, people are like, oh, that's like that. It's true if you apply it and you actually believe it and you do it. Because some of those horrific things I've ever been through, like I'm like, oh, this has a purpose to it. Like we're building one bad mofo that's going to be on the other side of this. And sure enough, whenever that storm clears, you're just freaking like feeling crazy, man.
Yeah, for sure. I will tell you that's definitely something that another byproduct of the ketamine. You asked like what my stuff was.
Sure.
I started to see the lesson in things as opposed to just seeing things like, oh man, why am I having to deal with this? Okay, what is the lesson in this? And have I experienced this lesson more than once? That's happened to me a few times.
This seems familiar.
Why do I have to keep
here, bro? I've been here before.
But the ability to recognize that, I didn't have that before. And now I can look at it, and it doesn't matter what the situation is. I can be like, okay, that had to go that way for me to end up in this position, for me to influence this. I can start to connect the dots about why things are happening, right? And so I think when you view it that way, it's a whole different mindset, for sure, as opposed to, oh my goodness, this terrible thing is happening to me. Oh my goodness, this terrible thing is happening to me to teach me this lesson so that I can apply it to this. That's a whole different mindset. But I had it from the military, but not in my personal life, if you will. I had it for the mission, but I didn't have it necessarily in my personal life until after the ketamine. And the distractions you described too. I started to notice all of that as well. When I would start to get into a flow state, if you will, like I would really start to get on path and I could feel the energy, stuff would start to happen. The phone would start to buzz. The dog would start to bark. Right? I mean, stuff would start to happen. The distractions that you talk about, right? The devil in the distractions. I was like, oh, got it. I'm on path because the distractions are happening. When it's quiet, I'm definitely not. On path. Yeah. And then you start to recognize it and use that as motivation as well.
Sure. So when you think about like consciousness, it's like a bubble, right? So your brain's built that way. All the different neurons are shooting out. Now, if there are patches in that bubble, right? So like there's places where it's not connected. So your brain, if it's not completely, like the global networks aren't connected, you have blinders on. Right. So it's like you're trying to look through Swiss cheese. You can kind of, or like you're looking through the forest where you can see pieces of things. Right. Versus if everything is connected, now your awareness is connected. So you can see things from multiple angles and you can see the big picture. So then it makes it a lot easier. Like, so the analogy I always use for people is like, if I'm trying to make my way through a forest at night, right. And I have a laser beam, that's going to freak you out. You can't really see anything. It's high concentrated light in one fine point. Which that's what happens when you're stressed, right? Everything zooms in on this one thing, like you're ruminating or you're freaking out about your partner or whatever it may be. Now, if we can enter relaxation and rest, we're turning from the laser beam into the light bulb or the lantern. So now I have diffused that light so I can see around me in the forest and be like, oh, there's a bear. I'm not going that way. There is the path. Right. So that's one of these things that these chemicals or these medicines can certainly help us do, because it literally helps create new neurons, right? It opens up those pathways to be able to see these. It's like, obviously there's so many aha moments, right? So the aha moments and the realizations, that is how God communicates to us. Like, oh, duh. Wow. It's like a little monkey just understood, oh, there's something bigger going on here. So, right. So that's that feeling associated with it or whatever. So we're always chasing those experiences, these deeper, realizations that are just so powerful that sets you up to be able to help. Like, how many people have you reached?
Oh, I don't even know. When you did that vision of, hey, you're in a coliseum or whatever you said, and the faces that are going to fill that are the people that you've positively influenced. So many faces came back that I had just completely forgot about.
Beautiful.
Just so many faces came back, and the stadium was totally full, and I was like,
keep filling that stadium.
Holy cow. So that's become my goal, right? Keep filling that stadium. And not from a selfish perspective. Like it's not self-gratification. I'm doing it because I genuinely want to help people become better. And I've even used that as a joke with people sometimes. I'm like, yeah, sometimes it feels like my path is to just better people or make them a better version of themselves and then release them back out into the universe.
Fun, isn't it?
And which is good for some aspects, but if you're talking about a potential partner in life, that's not great, right? If I'm developing somebody else's potential partner and then cutting them back out there, find their forever person, that's
it'll happen when it's due to happen.
Sure.
Yeah, that's what I love about it, is eventually it'll present itself right. You got to trust that one.
Oh yeah.
And that meditation we did while on the ketamine for the people is I'm really trying to get people plugged into the big picture, right? Like impact, but in that positive direction. And most people, they struggle with gratitude or appreciation or to see their impact. So then they don't engage.
Sure.
So if I can have you visualize everybody that you've ever come in contact with, ever, that you helped in some form or fashion, even if you held the door for them, and you fill up that stadium, you're like, dude, there are thousands upon thousands of people in here.
Yeah.
And now to feel all their collective appreciation and gratitude for what the work that you had did for them and being a servant and facilitating their growth. And then you can project that out into the future where, okay, if I keep doing this at a higher level, how many people will I have reached by the end of my life? So that collective like energy and force of like, oh my God, that's kind of overwhelming.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. That's in a good way.
Yeah. In a very good way. Very positive.
Yeah. Right. We got to shove that so you can feel it. Mm-hmm. And that's my approach is I shove the best of people in their face, but I also shove the worst of them in their face. Mm-hmm. That's what gets us out of the cookie jar. Mm-hmm. You know, we're getting numb. We're like, it's not that bad. You know, it's kind of good, but it's, that's a very dangerous place to be because then you won't change because we want the stimulus. You know, I'm just like my logo is the lightning bolt hitting the brain, right? The lightning bolt, that's like a bunch of electrons, right? And then the lightning rod, boom. So it's a dark night and then it's lit up in just a snap of a finger. That's motivation, baby. If I can present to you the worst of who you are right next to the best of who you are and get you to feel that, you're like, oh my God, I have to act now. There's no waiting on this. We got to fix this stuff today. And then with that level of attitude, you're going to get incredible results pretty much, rapidly.
Very
rapidly.
Very rapidly, yeah.
So final question here is usually people are always afraid of like side effects or like some kind of weird association or feeling with it. Did you feel anything like side effect wise using ketamine?
Nothing negative. Anything that I felt long term anyway would have been anything positive, which would have been, like I said, the access to components of my brain I didn't know I had, and the ability to think on a higher level. So all positive side effects. The heavier dose we did, just the lingering side effects, maybe for an hour after the session. But
that's real brief. Yeah, 1 hour is not bad.
That's like super brief. So it was definitely no negative side effects. I could see, I will say this, I could see how if someone has a bit of a addictive type personality, you could potentially get hooked on that feeling.
Yes.
Right? So you absolutely have to be careful with that. But if you're working towards a better self, then you're going to be resistant to that anyway, right? So if your mind's in the right place, you're going to resist that.
You're exactly correct. You're exactly correct. Is that there is an addictive potential with pretty much anything that alters consciousness.
Sure.
Now, and ketamine does have an anti-pain quality, so that's something that we have to be aware with for certain people who are in pain. But it is actually a cure or a remedy for addiction. So I've used it for alcohol use disorder or alcoholism plenty of times, and it for sure works. And there's a bunch of data around it for that as well as and some for like opioid use disorder and even getting people off of substances in general. It's great. Now you do have to be aware of that though, and always because we're creating that feeling. We're trying to get that in our day-to-day lives. Like you don't have to be on psychedelics to feel that sensation of like connectedness and love, because the ultimate purpose and peace and appreciation and presence that we're going to feel in life is going to come from your mission and you being fully engaged in that. There's no drug that can rob that feeling or even synthesize it. So if we can get people on that mission, they fall in love with the mission, and this was just a medicine as a tool to help us see it and to move towards it, and then we can just surrender that. Because I've done that. I mean, I can't tell you. I probably had hundreds of clients that have utilized ketamine at this point in time, and then all of them stop after a couple rounds, and they don't no issues at all.
I think what I felt with it from the addictive perspective was it gave me the clarity of mind to recognize it had the potential. So then the clarity of mind to resist it
right
as well, right?
That's why I like medicines that make you more conscious versus alcohol makes you less conscious, for example.
So there was that component of it, but also I don't know. I was going to go somewhere.
No, sure, just responsibility and care with it. So we have that going into the process. We're always aware of these things.
And if
go ahead and hit me with it.
So you recognize once you get to what you're talking about, where you can do it without the ketamine, you realize how much more powerful that is. If you're doing it with the ketamine, it may be easier to get there, but you're numbed to a certain effect.
It won't be as pure.
It won't be as pure. It won't be as pure. It won't be as powerful, and it won't be as impactful for sure.
Right.
As what it is when you can get there without the ketamine, for sure.
Amen, brother. There's nothing better than real life, real purpose in the moment. It is just, that's the end goal of everything that we're doing in this process is how do we get there for ourselves? Right. And that is out of service to the person next to me. Because you can just help that guy or girl in infinitely better. And then they see that spark, and that inspires them to get on. And then if we had all awakened individuals or all people who were bought in like that, where would we be as a society?
Oh yeah, it'd be insane.
Hot dog. All right, brother. Closing statements. What you got? Give me one. Let's see here. One piece of advice that you'd leave for the people.
If you're on the edge or if you're on the fence about it, do it. Right? Because if there's any doubt, there's no doubt. That's always kind of been my perspective on things. If there's any doubt, there's no doubt. And so, to me, it was well worth every second to do that. I already felt like I was pretty strong mentally and physically, but it just gave me so much access to stuff. Don't hold on to the stigma associated with mental health, especially if you find someone that can approach it like you do, where it doesn't feel like therapy at all. It does feel like life coaching. In fact, that's kind of what I thought in the beginning. Our very first session, I kind of felt like, okay, well, this is more life coaching than it. But as soon as we hit the ketamine, or even not just the ketamine, I mean, just the conversation as it progressed, I was like, oh, no, it's not that at all. It's not that at all. It's about empowering that person that's sitting across the desk from you. Totally different approach. And frankly, the way I think psychology should be handled.
Brett, that's the highest level of compliment I could appreciate from somebody I want to hear a compliment from, dude. All right, well, thank you so much for the conversation, dude. I'm looking forward to more. Let's go help these homeless, dude.
All right, brother.
Do hard shit.
Yep.